Alright, so how to play Enhancement Shaman 7.3. Well, and by all means, we're a builder spender class, and our resource is called Maelstrom. I have it right here. The only way you get Maelstrom is from Rockbiter. So you want to. This is your main ability. You want to just smack things with this. It has a very short cooldown, has 2 charges, actually has a 10-yard range, which is very weird for melee. And so that is the only way you're gonna make all your Maelstrom. And the main way you want to spend it is Storm Strike. Now, Storm Strike has a 11. Well, it has a cooldown around 16 seconds, but it's reduced by your haste, and it will be reset by a proc called Stormbringer. So all your attacks have a chance based on your mastery, which is right here, to reset the cooldown of your Storm Strike and make it cost less Maelstrom and have basically act as if it has 2 charges. We can use it twice in a row. So a lot of your damage is gonna be very like spastic up and down kind of RNG depending on your Stormbringer procs. Now, when you don't have Storm Strike up, but you are max on Maelstrom, like I almost am right here, I would pretend this don't cooldown. I would be using Lava Lash instead. Lava Lash does less damage, but it is a lot better than spamming Rockbiter while Storm Strike is on cooldown. So your main priority, well, first off, let's also talk about Flame Tongue. Flame Tongue is a range attack for 10 yards. It does a very low amount of damage, but it buffs your weapon for around 16 seconds to do extra fire damage with every hit, so you always want to have this active. It should never not be active. If you have a weak aura, make one for it. I have it right here. And you want to reapply it at around 6 seconds, so with the pandemic mechanic thing, it'll go up to 22 seconds and you won't waste any time on it. So it has another cooldown based around your haste, so you don't want to use it on cooldown. That's just going to waste a lot of the duration. So what you're going to want to do is whenever you're starting a fight, instantly Flame Tongue, make sure that's up before anything else, then start building up your attacks with Rockbiter. Then use all Storm Strikes you can, and whenever you don't have Storm Strike, start Lava Lashing. If you go low on Maelstrom, more Storm Strike. More Rockbiter, and then you can Storm Strike whenever you can. So the main priority, keep Flame Tongue up, keep your Maelstrom up with Rockbiter. Whenever Storm Strike is on cooldown, and the Storm Strike is off cooldown, you want to be using Storm Strike so it goes back on cooldown. And then if you have a high Maelstrom and Storm Strike is on cooldown, Lava Lash. That's just your spender for when you can't do anything else. So now there are obviously a lot of other things going on. Your artifact weapon is called Doom Winds. It is right here. Unleashes the inner power of your Doom Hammer, causing all auto attacks to trigger Wind Fury and increase the damage dealt by Wind Fury for 200% for 6 seconds. Now everyone knows Wind Fury is a proc off your weapon that makes it do bonus attacks that do extra damage. So it's just another thing to make our class burstier, honestly. So Doom Winds. Just use it almost on cooldown. If you're running this talent, which I highly recommend, Earthen Spikes, it increases your nature damage done the target. Always try to combine this with Doom Winds, because Doom Winds does almost entirely nature damage, because Wind Fury does nature damage. So it's really nice to combo those together, because it just makes it do 30% more damage. But don't save Earthen Spike only for Doom Winds, because you can use Earthen Spike 3 times within the cooldown Doom Winds. Speaking of, so as Enhancement Shamans, our number one thing we have is Burst. Now we have a lot of fucking Burst. If you look through our talents and everything, we have a lot of Burst choices. If you want a Burst build, you go this. You go this, probably this, and that, and that. This is an entirely Burst build. That's Burst. This is just baseline. You're never not going to be using this unless you have a certain legendary. And this is massive hitter that I would never use because I always run out of Maelstrom. But it's really good if you're having trouble getting rid of your Maelstrom. But this is just too good to give up. You always want to be running Tempest unless you have the Ring legendary, which gives you Tempest, and then you want to run Overcharge. This is garbage. So stick to Tempest. Sundering is a big burst AoE, but it's really inconvenient, especially for Mythic Plus, because it actually moves the target you hit with it, kind of like Thunder Shock, whatever it's called, as a Elemental Shaman. It will just move everything, so it's very annoying for people that are trying to cleave. So I would recommend Fury of Air in that situation for like Mythic Plus, but if you're running tier 4 or tier 2, go with Crashing Storms, because it just combines with the normal rotation that way. a lot easier. And Ascendance, another burst. So Enhancement Shamans are extremely valuable on burst fights. Like, for example, last phase of Star Augur, Enhancement Shamans are amazing. For the Shield and Maiden, Enhancement Shamans are amazing. For the wife mechanic in Avatar, Shamans are amazing. You always want to have Shamans when you have Enhancement Shamans when you have a burst mechanic you need to make through on a fight, like a shield or whatever damage requirement it is. So we can be very bursty, but you can try to avoid that, but you're still going to be bursty. You can just make yourself more or less. I prefer to go with a constant damage build, which is Landslide. Feral Lunge is a really selfish talent. It's just to get myself back to the boss whenever knocked back or something. In raid situations, you want to be running Wind Rush Totem almost all the time, just because it's a massive utility boost. It'll give everyone on the totem a big movement speed increase. It's really good for like the singularities on KJ. It's very useful for getting everyone to be able to run into Armageddons and everything, but it's on a really annoyingly high cooldown. Well, 2 minutes is that bad. But I really prefer Feral Lunge because no one communicates with this in my raid, at least. So always rerunning Wind Rush Totem, never Rainfall, unless your healers are really struggling on a fight, and even then I wouldn't see why we'd use it. But you always want to be running Wind Rush Totem if you're doing solo content, then run Feral Lunge. You always want to be running Lightning Surge Totem, especially in Mythic Plus, and I guess very few raid scenarios when you're using stuns in a raid fight. I don't think it's very common. Earth Grab Totem is more PvP. Voodoo Totem, entirely PvP. You always want to be running Lightning Surge. It is so valuable in Mythic Plus. The only annoying thing about it is that you can't really predict to make it land on like an interrupt time. So you can't make it instantly stun and hurt everything around it, or interrupt stuff around it. So you have to actually use your interrupt, which is on 12-second cooldown, so it should be fine anyway. For this, never run Lightning Shield. Lightning Shield is complete garbage. You're not going to be tanking things in raid fights or Mythic Plus, and Ancestral Swiftness is just so much better. Hailstorm, you only want if you are running the legendary that goes entirely built around it, and it is called, I'm blanking out here, Akanu's Absolute Justice. It makes your Lava Lash do bonus damage when you're using Flame Tongue and Frostbrand. Only use Hailstorm if you're using this. Other than that, there's no reason to. It's just another thing you have to keep applied. It's basically another version of Flame Tongue. So always go Ancestral Swiftness unless you're running that legendary. Next up, we have Tempest. This is by far the best talent to go here. Overcharge is, I guess, more of a burst build if you want a burst build. Powered Stormlash is just a lazy person's talent, even though this is a passive too. Overall, Tempest is just so much stronger because your Storm Strikes already do a massive amount of damage, increases their critical chance. As often as this does, by such a large amount, you always want it. Unless you have the legendary ring that gives you Tempest, and then go Overcharge, because Powered Stormlash is just garbage, especially for solo content, because it requires you to be with other people. Crashing Storm, it combos really nicely with tier 2 and tier 4 for 2 set and 4 set for tier 20, which gives you a lot of incentive to use your Crush Lightning even on single target fights. So you probably want to be running that. Fear of Air, I've heard a lot of good things. I haven't been using it. Mythic Plus, I would say it's probably a pretty good choice. But as I said before, Sundering, it's very annoying for your entire team when everything just randomly gets moved and spread apart when you use it. As for the last section, I prefer Earthen Spike. It is like a pseudo burst. It increases your nature damage done to target by 30% for 10 seconds. So that's the important part, not the 600k damage. It's good, but it doesn't matter. Also has a low Maelstrom cost, decently short cooldown. It's really nice. I like to combo it with my Feral Spirit and my Doom Winds for my burst. Rockbiter, a Boulder Fist. It's good, only in situations where you are just running out of Maelstrom way too easy. If you're fine with Maelstrom, if you're Maelstrom craft often or anything like that, don't run Boulder Fist. It's just a waste. Or if you're getting used to your spec, so you don't want to use a lot of new abilities. But other than that, Ascendance is extremely strong cooldown. I personally don't use it because I have the Ascendance Legendary, which is the gloves. So I already get a lot of Ascendances off, which is fine. So this, though, is a massive damage increase, and also makes you ranged, a 30-yard range. So it also helps you for downtime. Like in a normal situation, if I'm a shaman and I need a Silken Armageddon on KJ, I'm gonna be off the boss for probably 7-8 seconds. If I choose Ascendance, I can be using the Storm Strikes very quickly while I'm doing that, and I'm still doing damage, and probably doing more damage that would be just regularly hitting the boss. So if you have fights with a lot of downtime, like KJ or Avatar, when you're running back and forth through the phases, or you need to burst down a shield or something, you want to go Ascendance. But Earthen Spike, I find that it just syncs with the other bursts a lot better, so I prefer it, honestly. So this is the build I usually go, even though I would, in a raid scenario, I'll be going Windy Rush, but Feral Lunge I prefer when I'm soloing stuff. So your opener is going to be, obviously, going to pre-pot, then you're going to apply Flame Tongue, then you're going to build up some Maelstrom, then you're going to Earthen Spike, Doom Winds. I don't use Feral Spirits yet, you'll notice that, because if they give you so much Maelstrom from their attacks, also I'm going to be playing the Flame Tongue right now, they give you so much Maelstrom from your attacks that with Doom Winds and that, and as many Rock Riders as I'm using, I will be Maelstrom capped, and I don't want to do that. So now that I'm kind of steadying out my Maelstrom, I'm going to use it now, keep Flame Tongue applied, and now you'll notice that my tier 4 is at max, so even on single target fights, tier 4 is still very useful, because it is a big burst of damage. I thought it was garbage when I first read it, but it's actually really useful. You want to make sure you don't just stick with 15 stacks the entire time. Especially, well, save your 15 stacks for a max of like 20 seconds if there's ads coming out soon, like in Harjatan, you don't want to use it on just the boss, because it has so much potential with AoE damage. It will do upwards of 1 million, 2 million damage if you get a high stacks off. Other than that, legendaries, the legendaries you want, and I don't have. Okay, well, you always want to have this one I have right here. Smoldering Heart, like I said, Ascendance is an amazing burst. It's amazing cooldown. You always want and have it. It's so valuable. It helps you with downtime, helps you with your damage overall and everything. So it's a very strong one. Also, the other one I'm using, the Ring, I personally hate it because it makes you want to use Hailstorm, and I hate Hailstorm and the way it works and everything like that. So if I had a legendary, I wouldn't be using that. Also, a really good combo is this one and Akanu's, because this makes Hailstorm actually worth using to the point that I would switch, because you Lava Lash does 50% more damage just by doing your normal rotation with the Hailstorm, and you're doing another 1.5% from having Hailstorm from here. And keeping fire and nature damage from this is perfectly easy. It's just your Rock Biter gives you the nature, your Flame Tongue gives you the fire. So just by your default rotation, you're going to be doing this right. So you're going to be keeping 2 of those buffs applied. And other than that, when you're on a farm, you want Uncertain Reminder, because it'll just be lasting for the long term of the fight, or a long percentage of the fight. So if you're on farm. For progression, you want Pride as with every class. Emelon's Charge Score is very good for Mythic Plus or Cleave fights like, I'd say, Mistress or Harjatan right now. Vigilance Perch, that's garbage. It's crafted, it's gotta be garbage. Roots, you're not going to be standing still in almost any fight. I wouldn't use this. I don't know anyone that would. Storm's Tempest, I have this one. It's useful for fights such as if you're using Demonic Inquisition and your tanks are actually stacking the bosses, if you keep this applied to both bosses, it's useful. It's single target fights, you're not going to see any difference. You don't want this equipped for those. Spiritual Journey, I want these even though they're so garbage. They're never going to be good, or at least better than any of the other legendaries in here, except for maybe the crafted one. So I wouldn't use it in most situations, but I would use it in Mythic Plus just because Ascendance isn't very AoE oriented, unless it's tyrannical, of course. And other than that, we have Safuza's Secret. That's obviously only be really useful in Demonic Inquisition, at least as far as I can think of right now. Other than that, compared to Jane's Burning Wish is pretty garbage compared to everything else. And this one, I haven't gotten it yet, obviously, so I can't really explain how it does. I haven't been able to experience it. Other than that, your trinkets you want, I have garbage trinkets. These are not good trinkets. The ones you want, a lot of them are actually from Ebel and Nightmare, and they'll still be an upgrade. Or you want the thing from... What's your face? Alessand. Alessand's trinket is very good for enhancement, as with a lot of other classes, so you might have some competition for it, but has its own spec. What's it called? Convergence of Fates, that's what it's called. Very, very good. As far as trinkets like Draught of Souls that give you downtime, this is absolutely terrible. I had a Draught of Souls back when the Nighthold was current content, and I would honestly say it's a DPS decrease because you're so reliant on your uptime because you don't have any dots, you don't have anything else, you don't have anything productive happening while you're on downtime that you're not going to want downtime whatsoever. So other than that, your weaknesses, you will notice this if you actually main an Enhancement Shaman, is that you are very, very squishy. Your only defensive in the entire game is Astral Shift, and that's a 40% damage decrease for 8 seconds. It's really bad. It's made slightly better by the talent Elemental Healing, or not the talent, the artifact trait. Elemental Healing heals you for 40% over 15 seconds. It's a pretty slow heal, but it definitely comes in use. Other than that, you can heal yourself a bit better than Elemental can, at least, because Healing Surge becomes instant cast if you're less than 20, if you're 20 miles from or above. So you can heal your stuff up on like intermission phase in KJ if your healers are struggling. So it helps, but you only get 5 casts off before you're out of mana. After that, you're just basically on your own. You really want to save your Astral Shift though, because like I said, it's your only defensive. You want to save that for stuff like if you're having to stick with a Maiden on Avatar when he combines his big AoE thing along with the Maiden's freaking burst thing, or shield. So if any like Avatar mechanics are going on when the shield's going on, I think it's the 3rd and 4th ones that happens with, it's very, very painful, and you really want to stick with the boss, but you also want to spread out for the Unleash Chaos, I think that's what it's called, or Unbound Chaos. So, other than that, did I miss anything? Hero, obvious, that's kind of, yeah. Purge doesn't come in use except for the trash before Desolate Host. It's more of a PvP thing, in my opinion. You won't see much use for it. Well, also Mythic Plus, but I'm not going to explain all those situations. As far as things you don't really care about, I didn't even have Frostbrand put on my bar. That's how useless it is. It's more of a PvP thing if not using the talent. Earthbind, Mythic Plus can see you using this. Other than that, very niche situations. Hex, I never use. I have it in my bar only for doing the Mage Tower, which I managed to do. Other than that, that is basically all you need to know. Cleanse Spirit, and I've never had to use this on my Enhancement Shaman ever. Well, that's the TLDR. I'm not going to explain stat weights and stuff because I honestly don't trust myself to explain that. I personally use Pawn and use the default weights they gave me, and I do just fine damage. But as far as Tier 4 and Tier 2, and Tier 19 and Tier 20, Tier 19 has been nerfed pretty badly when the new patch came out, so I don't think it's worth keeping anymore whatsoever for eye level upgrade. Tier 20 is actually pretty good. I was really surprised. I thought it was garbage and I didn't use it for a while. But that Tier 4 set, or the 4 set, it actually hits pretty hard. I was very surprised. It really helps me on Desolate Host, which is a fight I struggled on. It helped me on Harjatan, it helped me on Mistress, any AoE fights. It's not as useful for stuff like Avatar, but Kill Jaden, stuff like that. Bosses where they just come up with ads eventually, you probably want to save the stacks unless you're able to build up the stacks by the time the ads come out. Just save up the stacks for the burst, the AoE fight phase. So, other than that, this is the first time I ever tried to make a guide for anything. So, let me know how bad it was. Okay, bye.